give it a comic book feel. Now, when Ang first told me that he wanted to do the Hulk, he started looking at a lot of the old comic books, the first several years of the Hulk. It's pretty much 6 rectangles per page, very straightforward. As time went on, the graphic design of the comic books became more and more interesting and a real part of the storytelling itself. And that became something that was very appealing to us, and that was one of the things that really got me thinking about it.
I feel like I'm a translator of that wonderful comic world, and I try to make that happen in motion picture. I think that's a high cost for me, but they're very different medias.
You can't just take the layout of a comic book and put that on a movie screen. It doesn't work.
But of course, the comic is a still picture. You have a composition and a linear movement in itself, so that you don't quite capture in a motion picture.
If you try to lay out a movie screen that way and tell the story sequentially in panels, that you wind up wasting all your screen. So I tried to think about what I liked about those kinds of comic book layouts and try to figure out a way to come up with cinematic devices inspired by that.
So we do take some of the multi-images influences from the comic, not so much a split screen, but see if we can get more out of what we're looking at than the regular linear structure. I would like to see the whole moments from beginning, middle, and end, to see the choreography within one shot.
Normally in a movie, if you want to get from one shot to another, you cut, or you dissolve, or you fade out and you fade in, and that's about it. On this film, I had free rein to do anything we could think of to get from one shot to another or to combine 2 images on screen at once. In this film, we were working with ILM, who then executed the things that we temped in the editing room.
We're working on basically 2 different types of effects. You could break it down into multi-screen effects, where things are happening on screen from different settings at once, more like a comic book layout, and then transitions, where we go from one scene into another, or sometimes into a 3rd and 4th scene. The design of those elements starts actually in the Avid, where the editor will do a layout and he'll show what each panel is supposed to look like.
I had no interest in doing the split screens the way they had been done before, or at least the way I had ever seen them done before. And a lot of what's sort of falling under the general category that we call the multi-image unit, most of it's not what you would call normal split screens. They move around a lot, and there's a lot of just strange, blurry, wipey transitions that aren't split screens at all. Those are the things that I was more interested in.
Ang didn't want people to see where we were enacting our effect. So the more seamless and the more confusing we could make it, the better. So to keep the eye guessing.
Ang is a very bright guy, and he learns from what's available to him. His initial idea for the split screens was split screens, rectangles, boxes. But as we were working in the editing room, it was really interesting to see him go from split screen to say, okay, where these trees are wiping in, let's leave Nick Nolte's eye on and kind of swoop it around the eye, and then, starting to think as crazily as we did about these kinds of effects, because he had never been thinking that way. I'd never been thinking that way until a few months earlier.
All right, let's jumpstart those brainwaves.
As a whole, the transitions sort of give the film this forward momentum, the idea that you're not waiting for a cut or a dissolve, but you're right into the next shot, and it's much more exciting than something you might have seen in a more conventional editorial style. Some of the most elegant transitions are the ones that the organic design or shape in an element is used to drive the transition from one into another.
The split screens are there to help tell the story. Sometimes you do split screens to show a number of different angles on the same thing. In addition to sometimes doing that, we tried to involve all these split screens in the storytelling, and that visual style became part of the storytelling style. We decided early on that we were going to try anything, or at least decide that anything was legal. Once you've decided that you're allowed to do anything, it's very liberating and a lot of fun, and coming up with some of these ideas was great fun.
Hi there, here's today's Daily Fact. All the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are split into bigger phases in which groups of films are linked to one another and in which characters make cameos in other movies. The first phase began with Iron Man, the second one with Iron Man 3, and the third one began with Captain America's Civil War. It is currently ongoing, although producer Kevin Feige said that this concept will probably change for future films. Remember to click below to subscribe or on the side for more great content.